Hello. By now you should have opened up this file. If you haven't, then just pause the video and go and open up the file that was attached to today's Google Classroom assignment. So this is where we're going to start to learn Google Sheets. I've given you an unformatted file, and we are going to take this data and we're going to end up formatting it. And by doing that, you're going to get to see the different features of Microsoft Excel. Some of them Mr. Fields showed you on Friday, and other ones are going to be new, but they're all going to be ones that we use repeatedly throughout the year. Okay, so to start off, this actually represents a grade book of a set of students and quizzes and checks and homework and notebook checks that they took and the grades that they got on their assignments. So it's something that you can all relate to. Okay, so my first move is right now I cannot see all of my students' names. Mr. Fields showed you on the video that if you go and position your cursor between the A and the B on the line there, it'll turn into a double arrow. And when it does, you can click and drag the column to make it wider. And this can always be true. You can make it shorter, but you have to get it into that double arrow look. Here's the other option. Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel, both of them have shortcuts. This one I use the most. If you go up again and get that double arrow between the columns, when you double click, it'll automatically widen the column to be the widest it needs to be for the item that's in it. So it's a shortcut. So like if I go to B to C, I could double click and it goes the widest that it needs to be. And now I see it was a chapter 1 quiz that these grades were for. I don't want you to go and do it for the rest of them though, because I want to show you a different feature for that. Okay? But just showing you again, double clicking, and the same would hold true for the rows. If you have something that is bigger that fits in the row, you can either double click or you can click and drag and make it bigger. So like I made it too big, I'll double click, it shortens it up to the smallest that it needs to be. Okay? All about conserving space. Okay, now let's go talk about the titles. Okay? Same thing, my titles were getting cut off. So this was chapter 1 quiz. And if I click on this cell B4, it says chapter 1 quiz. And then up here on the toolbar, it also shows what's in that cell. So if I go and click on cell C4, I see that actually it has notebook check written in there. If I click on D4, it actually has chapter 1 quiz sections 4 through 8. I can't see it because it's getting cut off. Now, when you're doing a spreadsheet, usually the goal is to try to fit as much data on a single sheet of paper as possible so that the person reading it or viewing it has the majority of the information without having to flip through pages. So I do not necessarily want to make my columns wider when the data that's the most important thing inside the columns is so small. It's only 2-digit numbers. So I'm not going to do that. Let me just undo what I just did. Instead, what I want to do is wrap the text. I want to keep my column with small, but I want my text to wrap around it. So I'm going to show you first on one file. So if I click on cell C4 and come over here to this icon right here, if you position your cursor on it, it says text wrapping. It's the one with the arrow pointing to the right. You click on that option and you have 3 options. We want the one that's in the center that says wrap. Wrap that text. And when you click on it, there you go, notebook check. Notice the column didn't get any wider, the row just got deeper, and the text ended up wrapping around. There is a shortcut. I can go ahead and do it for column D if I want as well. I can come up, click that text wrapping, click the middle one, and it'll wrap the text. Now in this case, when it wrapped the text, it says chapter 1 quiz sections, and the S ended up going onto the next line. If I don't like that, now again, I can go up between columns D and E, get that double arrow and click and just slightly drag it to the right, and then it'll fit it in there. So there, we're going to be using these formatting techniques a lot. Now, since I want this to happen for every column or every title in this row, in row 4, instead of having to go and do it on each one of these, there's a shortcut. What I can do is click on the 4, on the row 4, and if you notice the whole entire row highlights, even these cells down here that have no data in it. But really, any data that I put in these cells more than likely is going to be a title for a quiz or a test or something that I'm going to want to have the same features applied to. I want text wrapping to always happen for anything that I put in this row. So if I highlight, click on the 4 and highlight the entire row, now I can go up here and hit the text wrapping option, and it does it for them all at the same time. I'm going to keep that 4 highlighted because there's other features that I want to always happen with the title. For instance, I want them all to be boldface. So I'm going to go up and choose the B for boldface. And we're all familiar with that from using Google Docs and Microsoft Word. Now it's boldface. I also want to center my text. So if I come over here where it looks like a bunch of writing, you're going to click on that and it says horizontal alignment. If you click it down, here's your left justification, center justification, and right justification. We want center. Now my text is centered. Now I just go through and I look and I say, hey, is there anything else I want to change individually? So for instance, column B says chapter 1 quiz. It doesn't need to be this wide. So I can come up, and as if I click anywhere else, the highlight removes across row 4. Now I'm going to come up and center between B and C. I can either click and drag it manually, or I can double click, and it'll shorten it up to the smallest width that it needs to be. Notebook check looks good. My chapter 1 quiz sections 4 through 8 look good. Chapter 1 unit test looks good. This needs to be fixed. Homework average. And what I want to do is if I double click, it's not going to work right now because text wrapping is on. So I'm going to do the manual adjustment by increasing it till I have it so that homework fits and average doesn't. If you go too far, you can come on back. If you don't go far enough, you can slowly just keep inching your way over until like you get the K for homework up on the same line. Graded homework assignment, I want the T to still be attached to the word assignment. So I just need to open that column up a little bit as well. Quiz 2.1 through 2.3, that fits fine. Average, though, needs to be widened up a little bit so that I can get the word average. There is one other feature that you can also use with titles, or with anything, in fact. So if I click on the 4 again, because I want this feature to be applied to anything in this row, you can center your text like we did here. We centered it horizontally. But Microsoft Excel also gives you this option to center vertically. So if I click on this for vertical alignment, right now this is the default. It starts at the bottom and just builds up. But if I click on this for the middle, it then centers my words both. This one centers it vertically. This option over here centered it horizontally. So there's your horizontal center. This is your vertical alignment. Now it's looking better. Okay, the next thing I want to do is put some grid lines in. You can see these grid lines and you can see that they're in light gray. Right? It's just a guide for you, and each one indicates a different cell, like Mr. Field said. So for instance, I'm on cell J5 right now. It's always the column letter followed by the row number. Okay, so this would be cell J5. If I went to print this right now, you would not see these cells on the paper because again, they're just a guide for you while you're building your spreadsheet. If you want the borders to show, you have to put the borders in. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to take and highlight from cell A4 all the way down to here, which will be cell I-24. So I'm going to click and hold down the mouse button as I drag it. So I'm going to click on cell A4, keeping the mouse button pressed, and then drag my mouse, and you should see the highlight coming through. And I'm going to come all the way down till I'm in cell I4. Then I'm going to let go of the click. So I'm going to let go of the mouse button. Everything should stay highlighted. Now, since this is highlighted, whatever I do next is only going to get applied to the highlighted section. I want the borders. Here's your borders button. It looks like a window. You click on the borders button, and as Mr. Field said in his Ed Puzzle on Friday, this does all borders. It'll border everything. So I'm just going to click on that, and bam, I just have borders put around my spreadsheet. So if you didn't get that, let me do it one more time. I'll just undo what I did. I clicked on cell A4, right? That's my starting point. Over here is going to be my ending point. I click and hold down the mouse and move my mouse to the right and down until I highlight cells A4 through I-24. Go up and choose the border button, click the window, boom, you have your borders. All right, so what we've done so far today is we have done text wrapping, which happens right here with our text wrap. We have centered vertically, we have centered horizontally with our titles, and we executed it by hitting the whole row by choosing the number of the row. We also learned how to increase our column sizes, and we learned how to put a border